Very good morning. We just finished with looking at what is surface water flow and how to measure surface water flow in terms of discharge and few applications that surface water flow has, including environmental flow. We are still in lecture number 2 of Unit 2. Now we are going to look at aquifer performance. All of us, we know that aquifer are kind of rock that holds water in it and are one of the main sources of groundwater. So let us look at aquifer performance. Firstly, before looking at what exactly is aquifer and what are aquifer performance, it's very important for us to know what is infiltration, because aquifer will not hold groundwater until we have infiltration process happening. So infiltration is water percolating through soil and into cracks and permeable rocks. So basically we have 3 zones, major zones that we need to look at closely before knowing what is aquifer. We have got zone of aeration, where we have mostly air pores. Because of that, the zone is known as aeration zone. Then under the aeration zone, aeration zones are usually unsaturated zones. So under the aeration zone, then we have saturated zone. So these zones are actually saturated with water, and the saturation zone has a line that draws between unsaturated zone, and that line is basically what water table is all about, and where the atmospheric pressure and the pressure on this water is basically equal. So that's water table. And the distribution of materials of aquifer is all throughout the zone of aeration and even through the zone of saturation. Then we have a zone called as recharge zone. So if let's say this is a setting of actual strata of the soil. If this is an animated a diagram of how differently the stratum or the aquifers layered on each other. Let's say that firstly we have unconfined aquifer, where it's basically the continuation of saturated zone from water table. Then we have got confined aquifer, which is basically underneath the hardcore rocks, where the rocks are not letting the water to go through or sit inside them, so that they reach the confined aquifer. So we have got different aquifer system, and the only way to recharge them is through a zone called as recharge zone. And these zones are fortunately not just straight through the surface, the confining layers, bedrocks, like very, very tight bedrocks, which will not let water to be seeping inside to reach confined layer, these bedrocks, and to reach to confining aquifers. What I'm saying is there are not only ways like the water will travel from the soil, the water table, the confining beds and the confining aquifers. Water can also travel from the zone of recharge, so recharge zone. So if we have any opening, if you have got any advantages opening to recharge the confining area, then it can be directly recharged to those confining aquifers. So that's how a recharge zone works. So we'll be looking at this in detail in a while, but just know that though we have got ways to recharge, but these recharge zones have to be identified properly and have to be conserved properly, so that we exactly know from where we have to recharge. But most of the time we do not know from where we have to recharge. So most of the time the movement of water is from the soil surface, the water table, the confining beds and the confining aquifer. So that's a very long process and takes hundreds of years And if the confining beds are down beneath the last confining, if the confining aquifers are beneath the last confining beds, then it's going to take millions of years to get recharged. So though recharge is happening at a very slow rate, the withdrawal is happening at very high rate. Those water table well which is dug to water table is quite easy, as well as the recharge is quite easy. But I think digging an artisan well, or a well which is connected to confining aquifer or artisan aquifer, is quite challenging to dig as well as to connect. But more challenging is to get this aquifers replenished by water later. So basically, aquifers are those rocks which are porous, meaning they have got spaces between the rock cavities and all, cracks and crevices, porous layers of sand, gravel, or rock lying below the water table. So just below the water table, if these kind of rocks are being found, accumulating lots of water, then that's what aquifer is all about. Looking at aquifer, though we have got lots of different kinds of geological formation, but just to compare with aquifer and aquifer system, looking at this formation, the geologic formation can be divided into 4 ways. So one is called as aquifers, and the aquifer has both porosity as well as permeability, meaning porosity is the amount or the measure of air spaces inside the rocks and crevices of rocks, cracks of rocks, actually the pores that is found within the rocks. In between 2 rocks or in between several rocks, there will be some pores. So that pore is going to be helpful to store water. And second one is permeability, meaning it's the measure of how easily the fluids are going to move from the one region to another region. So permeability is very important aspect, because if our rock is lying way down beneath the if our aquifer system is lying way beneath the bedrocks, and if these bedrocks are having less permeability, then it will be taking lots of time for water to reach to the ground level aquifer, because permeability is some thing that's very important for the recharging of the aquifer. But aquifers itself is rocks having both porosity as well as permeability. Example like sand and gravel. So it's very easy. If you just mix lots of gravels together, it's impossible to make them very tight, because there are air spaces in between them. So these air spaces are essential for storing water. And look at the sand again. The more water we pour, the more water it sucks, and that's the good thing about sand and gravel. So it is making up a very good aquifer. Limestone, on the other hand, is also a very good aquifer. Then we have got aquitard, which has porosity but limited permeability. It has airspace, but the kind of rocks that these aquitards are made of, they are not letting water to move or trickle down through the rock systems easily, so that the amount of water we have in this kind of rocks, the aquitard, is quite less. Though they have got air spaces, because the kind of like easily the water is moving is very slow, so less permeability. Example like shale and clay. So you must have seen clay. Do they have got very good airspace within that? They are not letting water to get inside them very easily. Another rock type is called aquicludes, where we have got porosity still, but the permeability is 0. So even if you have got pores, you have no water, because to have water has to be moving inside them or moving in through them, but they are not letting water to move. Example like sandy clay. So sands are known to have very good water holding capacity, because they have got very good porosity and permeability. Like aquifers are composed of sands, but sandy clay, sand is leading to have pores, but clay is not letting it to be permeable. So sand clay is an example of aquifer. Aquifer is another rock, geological formation that takes place where this kind of rocks, they are not letting water to be either into the space, or neither water can get stored in the pores, nor water can flow through them. So no porosity as well as no permeability. So the examples can be granite and quartz. So they are very concrete, rigid. If you just pour water on them, it's not going to sip inside them, but it's just going to trickle away from the surface. So it's a bad example of aquifer. So aquifer, aquitard, aquiclude, aquifuge. So it's the sequence that you need to know. Aquifer, poro, permeability both. Aquitard, porosity but less permeability. It's just bending. Aquiclude, porosity but permeability nil. Aquifuge, no permeability, no porosity, just like a punch. So that's it. You can remember as aquifer, yes, for porosity, permeability, and TCF, T for porosity, permeability less, C for clute, porosity, no permeability, and F for fuse, neither porosity nor permeability. So now we have got a potentiometric surface. So it's very important when we are learning aquifer, we need to know something on potentiometric surface, also known as piezometric surface, spelled by P-E-I-Z-O metric surface. So also known by the term called as piezometric surface. Here specifically what happens is that this is an imaginary line that's being drawn on the aquifer, meaning we know that specifically confined aquifer are quite pressurized, because on top of the confining aquifer, these are confining aquifer, we have got rock beds over here. So these rock beds are basically pressing them. So over a long period of time, this confined aquifer have water, but water are having lots of pressure because confining beds are pressing them like anything else. So if you just put a small pipe through them, what happens is that water bursts and come out of a sudden, and it comes with huge pressure. And if you just observe the well, if for example if you're putting a pipe to make a well inside confining aquifer, let's say this is the confining aquifer that where we want to make well. If you're making well over here, then water is going to rush like anything else because of huge pressure conserved over hundreds of years, and the water will rise at such a height that that height is actually equal to the height of our confining aquifer water. So water has reached over here at confining aquifer. So this is the height where potentiometric, where water will come out and reach. So this is actually known to be an estimate of where water has reached at confining aquifer. So piezometric or potentiometric surface is an imaginary line of water where confining water with huge pressure can come out at that level. So in daily life, we should know that in daily life we should know that if you just make a pipe like this, if you pour water from here, and the water level is going to go down until the water level of another piping system, and this is equal. That means if water is coming from here and goes to this side of the U of this pipe, the water level is basically going to be equal. So until they are equal, is going to come from one side, one source to the another. So until it's equal, it's going to flow here and there to make it have equilibrium. So the basic application of this one is that if our water tank is towards the basement of the building, it's never going to rise up because the pressure is never equal. One source is at the basement, and the sink where, or the destination where you want to get the water is at the top level. So that's not going to be fair. So potentiometric application comes into play. So it will rise until the source level is at equilibrium. So if you put the water tank on top of the building, and if you connect the pipe, and if you connect to another building, so the water is going to come down and it's going to get back to another building, because it has to maintain its pressure at equal level. So it's one of the applications of this is one of the applications of potentiometric. So aquifer performance is one thing that is done in order to see whether we have good potentiometric surface of aquifer, whether our aquifer is healthy, whether our aquifer can accumulate good amount of water or not. So basically, aquifer performance is done in order to check whether we have got good hydraulic property of aquifer or not, whether aquifer can really store a good amount of water or not. Then we can also identify the boundary that aquifers make. So how long the aquifers are going, how long these rock systems are distributed in nature. So we can also study that one. And there are two ways to study the performance of aquifer. So aquifer performance, if I just get back again to aquifer performance, basically it happens through pumping of several wells. So for example, if this is one well, if this is another well, if this is another well, so basically what we do is we try to pump this well through any kind of like metal over here. So pump this well so that we know that water is moving, and sometimes water comes out from here, sometimes the water will come out from here. These are all experimental well, just to see the health of the aquifer, what is the performance of aquifer. So we just pump sometimes from here to see the performance of this one and this one, and basically we are trying to see the performance of rock beneath these ones. So basically we are trying to see what is the aquifer property like, what is the storativity like, what is the horizontal distance of aquifer, how long the aquifer has come from, how long it's been established. So to know these three things, one is the property of aquifer, one is the storage capacity of aquifer, and another thing is the boundary or the horizontal distance. So this is being done through two ways. One is through transmissivity test, where basically you are seeing how wide aquifer is being distributed. Basically we are seeing the boundary of aquifer, where exactly is the starting of the aquifer, where it's ending, what is the boundary that it has taken, so that we know that aquifer is quite healthy, it's quite large, we can accommodate large amount of water in that. And secondly is through storativity, basically to see the storage capacity of aquifer in like volume per area and all. So basically two ways to see transmissivity and storativity. You will learn this in detail in hydrology. That's when I've deleted lots of slides to not repeat if Jambisar is going to teach on this one. So that's it on aquifer performance. So again, good aquifers are those aquifer which has got porosity and permeability, and good pores and good permeability characteristics are being given by stones like rocks like sandstones, conglomerate well-joined limestones. Limestones, again, please remember, it's a characteristics of a good aquifer. Silent gravel, like we have been talking, And again, fractured volcanic rocks. We do not want non-fractured. We want fractured because fractured is something that will give us pores and porosity in our rocks. So fractured volcanic rocks such as columnar basalts, the unconfined aquifer, like I said, are the rock systems which will hold water, but these are just beneath the water table. So sometimes drying of water table will make unconfined water to dry, unconfined aquifer to dry. Very healthy water table will make very healthy unconfined aquifer. So basically, what we need to know about unconfined aquifer is that it's just below the water table, and there's no pressure because there's no confining bed that's above the unconfined aquifer. But again, to look on aquifer which is confined or artesian aquifer are the aquifer which are beneath the confining bed. That means they are under lots of pressure. So if you just put a small pipe in them, the water will just come out with lots of pressure from that pipe and it'll just go up. And so that's it on aquifer.